Hi, welcome to this car review. I think I've been arranging this for about a month. Every time something got in our way, but finally we made it. Today we're in Puławy, where I'll tell you about a car that I've wanted to show on my program for a long time, but you could say that for years no one came forward. And finally Dawid did. I warmly invite you.
Hi, I'm Dawid. As Zakharov mentioned, after many attempts we finally managed to meet so we could shoot a video about the Cadillac SRX4, a direct competitor to the Lexus RX on the American market. Together with my family, we were looking for an SUV because that's what we need due to the place where we live, with four-wheel drive and slightly higher suspension. And since we already had several European cars in this configuration or similar, we wanted to try something maybe a bit more exotic from the States. We felt like maybe going a little wild. The car we're presenting has American registration, but it comes from European sales. It was originally sold in Switzerland and then brought to Poland. It's probably one of just a few examples available in Poland at all. At the time we were looking for a car for ourselves, the selection was very limited. There were exactly 3 examples in Poland. We also had one more rule in mind, that it should be relatively simple in its construction. And here we have a relatively simple design of the power unit and the entire drivetrain because it's a classic V6. The only innovation here is the direct injection system. There are no turbos or any space-age electronic systems added to it. The engine sends power to a conventional 6-speed automatic transmission. It's an automatic with 4-wheel drive, an open differential and no locking differentials. It's a simple system, but from my experience it's quite efficient. We bought the car with a mileage of about 200,000 kilometers. We've already driven nearly 17,000 kilometers with it. Also in winter conditions, also in mountainous conditions. And this system simply works very efficiently. I couldn't get this car stuck in deeper snow even when I deliberately tried. It always got through. The engine generates 270 horsepower, which allows the car to accelerate to 100 kilometers per hour in under 8 seconds and exceed the 200 kilometers per hour barrier, driving on the German highway. The car really surprised us with its characteristics because we expected maybe a bit of a couch-like ride. But the car feels very tight and composed. It has quite a firm suspension, not excessively so, but I think its characteristics are very similar to European cars. The car does not have and has never had an LPG system. The fuel consumption might be shocking for owners of 1.6 engines, but if someone has a bigger SUV in their garage, I think they shouldn't be surprised. Because with calm driving on, let's say, local roads, the fuel consumption is about 8 liters per 100 kilometers. When driving at speeds of 130 to 140 on expressways and highways, it's about 10 liters and some change, and fuel consumption is worst on short trips. In winter, when we drive our son to school, it's 2.5 kilometers to the school, and it can burn 15 liters per 100 kilometers. For a car from the end of 2010 and the model year is 2019, I think the car has a surprisingly good level of technology inside because it's equipped with a high-definition touch screen. The onboard television system also, of course, supports Bluetooth technology. Back then, maybe it was already a standard, but in the US, for example, it was equipped with satellite radio, which is quite a unique feature. It's also possible to upgrade this system because American companies offer plug-and-play devices, and then you can use Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. When it comes to luxury features, for a GM brand, we have leather seat upholstery here. Skórzaną, a leather dashboard, and of course a leather steering wheel. What can be said about this car from that period? That there are no fake materials here, which is very common in today's cars. What looks like aluminum is actually aluminum, leather is real leather, and so on.
Dear viewers, the partner of this episode is MubiPL, which is a well-known way for you to buy cheap insurance. This comparison tool checks offers from many different insurance companies and provides a ranking of the cheapest offers. When you buy through MubiPL Zakar after purchasing a policy, you can also get 100 PLN cashback. Check it yourself, even if your policy isn't expiring right now. After entering your car's details, you'll get an overview of the entire market within a few seconds. Note that the prices shown will be before deducting the cashback mentioned earlier. You can compare it with what you paid for your last policy. It might come in handy in the future. The link is in the description, and let's not overpay for insurance.
I think the ride comfort is at a surprisingly European level. The seats are comfortable, they're ventilated and heated. There's 3-zone air conditioning and a heated rear bench. However, these aren't like grandma's couches. They're more firm and support the body well. At least that's how I feel. They have a wide range of adjustment, in my opinion. Of course, there's also adjustment here. Well, maybe not, of course, because you rarely see this in European cars, but there is pedal adjustment. You can move them closer or farther away. This really helps you find the optimal driving position behind the wheel. Here with Zakar off, we came to the conclusion that a feature usually found only in the most expensive European cars, but present here, is the doors that stay in the position you leave them after opening. So there is no stepped adjustment for the door opening angle. The adjustment of the position where you leave them is very smooth. Besides that, the car has double laminated windows, so it's pretty quiet inside. The sound system in this car, I didn't even count how many speakers it has, but there are quite a few, is branded by Bose. The car also has a panoramic glass sunroof. I think that for my needs, you can travel comfortably in it, even on long trips, without feeling tired. My record for driving this car in one go is 700 kilometers, and honestly, you can get out of it without any pain in any part of your body.
Now it's time for the 2-meter tall guy test. I've never sat in the SRX before. Lowering the seat feels like a roller coaster ride. You keep going lower and lower, faster and faster, and suddenly it turns out I'm sitting exceptionally low in relation to the steering wheel. Okay, wait a second, it's actually here. Oh no, the pedals are on the right side and on the left. Ha! It came out perfectly, that missing centimeter, perfectly in relation to the steering wheel. You can also adjust the pedals, but the most important thing is that thanks to the seat being lowered so much, I'm looking at the road exactly halfway up the front windshield. And this is one of the very few cars where the interior mirror is above that line, so I have perfect visibility. The A-pillars are quite thick. That's definitely noticeable, but fortunately they're not positioned very low, so in their upper part they're not right in front of my eyes. Besides, looking around like this, it's my first time sitting here. Like I said, I can see a bit of that resemblance to other GM brands because these shapes remind me of something. It's neither a Mocha nor an Insignia. But generally these family ties within the corporation are really quite obvious here, which doesn't take anything away from Cadillac. Because I see a really nice solution here, like a little clock in the middle and a different kind of screen. It's actually a really nice combination of the basic, most important information displayed on the screen with still very much analog gauges. I like it here, especially in the front. I'll see how the back is. And in the back, that's where things start to get tricky. The seat didn't move back when I got up, did it? So this is a 2-meter guy sitting behind another 2-meter guy, and I'll tell you, it's bad from every angle. The foot space is just so-so, the headroom is, as you can see, and the knee room too. You don't really know what to do with yourself, but look at how it used to be, how it looked. The multimedia system is an integral part of the seats, so we don't have to wonder what to do with these screens when we're not using them. We also have air vents only in the center here, which is interesting for a car that has all-wheel drive. Surprisingly, the floor is flat with barely a hint of a center tunnel. We have an outlet here. I see a 12-volt socket, an audio output for the multimedia system, a storage compartment below, and seat heating. full comfort, as long as you don't have such long legs. That would be absolutely perfect. You can also adjust here. David said you can, but I can't find it for you right now, but I'm sure you can, since he said so, the angle of the seat backrest. And finally, a different kind of armrest than all the ones I've seen before. There's clearly a storage compartment here and two cup holders. Everything is quite comfortable, so let's say if you're 1.90 meters tall, traveling is a breeze.
The car's trunk has a capacity of about 500 liters and is equipped with a pass-through in the rear seat, for example, for skis, and a large compartment under the trunk floor. Sorry for the mess in advance, but it's really spacious, and all those things that are usually scattered around the car can easily be transported here. Additionally, we have a luggage securing system here. These are rails running around the trunk, and you can mount this telescopic device in them to divide the trunk basically any way you like. The trunk lid is opened electrically. Additionally, we have these small compartments on the sides here. And it's the same on the other side. I think that for our needs, or for a family, it works, you could say, perfectly. Now listen to the sound of the engine.
Listen, we're incredibly lucky because it looked like it was going to rain, but there was just one drop, and the moment we finished recording, it really started pouring. So our synchronization with the weather is 100%. I was actually surprised about this V8 because I remembered that V8S were there before, the old famous one.
Yes, 4.6. In the end, there were two left. The weaker one, 3-liter, 270 horsepower, and the 3.6, also a V6 in 2-power versions. Without the turbo, it had about 310 horsepower, something like that. With the turbo, 350 or 360, so that's already a bit more serious power.
You're pretty well informed about all these topics. I have to add some background here actually, that when David came to the recording, he handed me the key and said, "Here you go, record." I said, no, the format of the used car test is that we record it together. And David, without any preparation, recorded everything you've seen so far. So for someone who didn't check Wikipedia, he did pretty well. He recorded it and didn't check all those technical details, so you just have it all right away.
Thank you very much.
Available?
I tried to do some research before buying a car.
And that stuck with you?
That's just something that stuck with me because these aren't such obvious cars like a Volkswagen, for example. We can also switch to sport mode if you want. You do it by simply pushing the shifter. That's all you need to do. And theoretically, it should be better now.
I mean, this engine delivers power very linearly, so if you want to rev it higher to make it better, it's basically more fun in terms of sound, because what we heard in the parking lot was really quite dull. Now it sounds much better, although I would judge the tone of the sound more than the volume. It's not loud at the same time. When it comes to dynamics, I would say it would be a sin to complain about 270 horsepower here. However, it's not a sports car. It's more of a capable family car that lacks nothing, but it wasn't made to impress, shock, or necessarily always be first off the line at every stoplight. The gearbox is also, so to speak, from another era. So that downshift was fairly quick and decisive, but... Yes. The gear change was already with a bit of a jolt, and we weren't even in sport mode. So it's more about how the gearbox works rather than any real sporty intent, like, now I'll do it because I know you want it. But it was in comfort mode and still couldn't do it more smoothly. I've been thinking about that SRX for a long time, and now I know it was worth the wait. I'm really pleased, because the car is truly impressive, especially considering it was made 15 years ago.
Can you confirm or deny what I said, that it drives very much like a European car?
You know what? In a moment we'll put it through the moose test and we'll know more, but for now the steering doesn't feel loose. Its character, which is influenced a bit by the gearbox, one known from European Opels, means the way it drives isn't much of a surprise to me, because I already know this driving mode from the Insignia and from other Opels mainly.
This is my first American car that I own, and I was expecting that stereotypical grandma's couch ride. Look, even though it's a GM brand and even though it's been over a dozen years since it was produced, I was surprised that apart from some elements where something was simply
Physically damaged.
Somehow, these materials are not of terrible quality. Yes, nothing creaks, at least I didn't find any such elements.
I didn't tear anything during the tall guy test, but it looks just like it should, like the standard you could expect in showrooms today.
You know what, I actually do your creaking tests myself in the cars I have or buy. And here I was actually pleasantly surprised that nothing really creaks, not even these plastics here, the center console. Well, maybe, okay.
This display is a moving part.
It's a moving part, but it's really not a problem here. Also, while driving, it's just quiet, nothing bothers you here.
Yes, here we can prove it once again. It has a different sound, but it's not loud. Oh, only now, around 6 to 7, this engine becomes louder. Yes, but that's a rev range we rarely use, and when we do, I think we're able to accept that it's going to be loud. Here we can do a left-right maneuver.
I'm curious myself.
Nothing will happen since I can see it here, just tracking obediently. The only thing is, I'm afraid the tire will ruin our fun, so 50, slow down 50. And yet he got scared. It turned left well. The tire didn't give in and actually turned left. However, I don't know what its curb weight is.
About 2 tons, maybe 200 more. Oh.
2 tons, 200, that's a lot. And just as I was coming back to the other side, that's when you have to maneuver from one position to another. That's the worst part. And he basically handled it very preemptively, because in the end I didn't feel like anything bad was going to happen to that car. I mean, like there was about to be some oversteer or something was about to happen. So it was very much slowed down preemptively. The car slowed down quite noticeably, and you could feel a tug on the left side through one wheel or the other. But that wasn't a reaction to the car actually starting to behave unstably.
Let's also note it didn't tilt much. This American suspension is quite interesting.
Well, I don't know, maybe the Swiss market version drove more like a European one.
I think that the tires we talked about earlier, the ones on this car, contributed a lot to the fact that they just squealed simply. Because these aren't top brands. Let's be honest, this system is really efficient. 4X4 is surprising because Cadillac isn't really a brand known for off-road vehicles or off-road solutions, or GM in general. Although actually GM does have those pickups, which are supposedly very good off-road. But despite the open central differential and the overall simplicity of this system, as I mentioned before, it's very efficient and handles slippery conditions really well. One criticism of this car among American journalists was that, especially in the front-wheel drive versions, because here the engine is mounted transversely, unlike its predecessor, they are very oversteery, but even in winter conditions, when I tried to provoke oversteer by aggressively entering corners, I couldn't manage to make it happen. It simply neutralizes it very quickly, and the car follows a steady line.
To sum up, you did an experiment, your first American car, although with a slight European heritage, and in your case it turned out to be a very good, so to speak, final result. You drive American luxury, but with a European sense of confidence behind the wheel.
Yes, and I think
that it was a successful experiment.
Yes, that's one way to sum it up. I think I'll continue experimenting. I'll stop being afraid of this kind of motoring, which is basically absent from our market.
David, thanks so much for showing the car.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for letting me finally get to know this SRX up close. Thank you as well, dear viewers, for watching this episode, and see you in the next episodes.
Thank you very much. Bye. Bye.